finally getting any parts and stuff together and getting this thing back in the mix here. Between my schedule and waiting on some parts and things to get done, this is where we're at. But gladly, we've got things ready to happen here. So let me just update a little bit, and then we'll kind of go over everything. The previous video mentioned about the Wrangler I was working on, and it's almost done. My daughter's 23 Explorer, it's done and looking better than new. So I'm going to shout out some people here that got us to this point on all these projects or helped out. Plummer Automotive, Steve Plummer in Winter Haven, Florida, helped immensely on this project, and car turned out beautiful, better than new. If you can never tell the difference the car's ever hit. If you looked at the previous video, it was clobbered pretty good in the rear. So not getting any sponsorship or anything from any of these people I mentioned. These are just people I work with, and they've done a good job, so I'm going to mention them. I think it's fair to them to let them know, people know that who's going to do a good job for you. The fender's been repainted. We did that here in the shop, and it's turned out really great. Happy with that. So it's going to be ready to put on. Transmission back in. As we mentioned previously, went out to Jackman Custom Cycles in Daytona. Jerry Jackman used to work at Harley Davidson Manassas, which was also a sister company of Harley Davidson Washington, where I bought the bike. So him and I crossed paths years ago, unknowingly. He used to hang out some at Zipper Cycle, and I've been in there a lot of times, and with him, and did some machine work at Zipper Cycles back in the 80s when they were in College Park, Maryland. And I guess Jerry was in there quite a bit frequently also. Now they've moved up the road a little bit, but if they need newer bikes, Harley Davidson Performance, Zipper Cycles is your place to check out. Anyway, Jerry on the transmission, he broke it all down, new seals. We went ahead and put all new Andrews gears in it. He bead blasted the case and got everything looking sharp again. So it's, again, another item like it came out of the factory, maybe even better, because I understand the Andrews gears run a little better than the factory gears. Has some powder coating done. Got these brackets back. Advanced Custom Powder Company coating. And I believe their address is Lake Alfred. But anyway, they're by the Winter Haven Airport. Did a nice job on the powder coating. They had some products come back from another place not long ago, and they had like a little bit of sand in the coating. But these things are smooth as glass and look sharp. So appreciate that over at Advance. Spacecoast chrome plating over in Titusville, Florida. In the previous video, you noticed these things were pitted up pretty good, so they didn't know what they did, but buffing and polishing and then re-chroming and getting them back to where they were. But even all the little lettering within the lenses there is just perfect. And the chrome's nice and chromed all the way down into all the little letters. It looks nice, better than new. So that's where we're at. It has some more things to get chromed, but putting them off a little bit because chroming is expensive though. So other than that, we're going to start putting this transmission in and we'll see what we can get going on that. Okay, in preparation for getting this transmission back in here, getting everything pushed up out of the way and ready, and I noticed the bottom plate for the transmission, it sits in the same bracket here that the motor actually mounts to, welded into the frame. But I had some play here. You hear that rocking back and forth underneath there, so it didn't quite fit square to the frame. So I don't know if over the years things have changed, or maybe it was like that from the factory. I'm sure the factory, they put things together a little faster than I'm trying to do here. So what I did is I got a machinist level and leveled the bike front to back, right to left, and then I've used this angle gauge, and I found out what corner was a little lower, and I added a 1/1000 shim washer underneath that corner, and then that took all the rocking out of it, so it should bolt down nice and firm. And the idea is to get everything in parallel, the transmission, the motor, to the primary, so that would give less stress on the primary cover, inner primary cover, and no binding on there. All right, once we got the plate sitting in the same plane with the engine mount in the frame, we're going to take the plate, and it has square holes. It uses a carriage bolt on the front. and it has to mount to the transmission before it can all be put in place as one assembly. You can't put the plate in and then come back and drop the transmission on top of it. So when we put the plate on, we're just going to put the nuts to kind of hold all this in place, and then we'll come back later. This won't get tightened up until after the inner primary is on. The idea is to get the plate in, mounted to the motor mount in the machine, and we'll leave this loose so it has some play in it. When we put the inner primary in and we pull everything together so it's all in the same plane, then the last step, we'll come back and tighten up this plate and lock it down where it's going to be. All right, we got our plate on. Hopefully everything ready to go in here. One thing I didn't mention, besides the 4 bolts on the plate, there's a 5th bolt that goes into the bottom of the transmission right here. And that also is left loose so everything can slide around until we get it tightened up. So the plate will go in place and it gets tightened up firmly, and then we come back and tighten those up. Couple little things that have to slide out of the way to get this in there. So make that happen here. Go. We're home. There she goes. And like I mentioned, there's a couple carriage bolts in the front, and they're also kind of special. I guess you call it special. They've got the end flattened out or ground off on one side of them, so that fits up so it doesn't up against the case on the transmission to allow these to drop down in there. So one thing I wanted to show on this bottom plate here, the bolts that get mounted up solid, the nuts that go on the front of the plate are it's a thinner than a normal nut, so they go up on the front where the carriage bolts were on the transmission. And I don't know why they're thinner, why they decided to do that. There doesn't seem to be any clearance issues here, but that's what they did. So anyway, we'll get these in place, get this tightened up, and get the plate mounted down solid, and then I will put the chain on, and again leaving the chain loose because the chain has to be in place before we put the inner primary on. So next video we'll do the prepping of the inner primary and getting that ready to go on. And we'll proceed with that and show you some things on the clutch basket and the inner primary.